Welcome to Environmental Health and Safety's new employee orientation. The purpose of this orientation is to introduce you to our department's mission and areas of responsibility, as well as FSU's accident and injury reporting guidelines. You will learn about FSU policies regarding the use of university vehicles, your right to know about hazardous materials in the workplace, and their potential impact on your health and the environment, as well as the university's stormwater protection initiative. There will be a brief review at the end of each section for you to check what you've learned. The mission of the Department of Environmental Health and Safety, or EHS, is to promote a safe and healthy environment for all members of the university community. As a member of FSU's community, you are encouraged to join us in this commitment. We offer many safety services to protect and safeguard everyone on our campuses. If you observe any unsafe conditions, please report the condition to your supervisor and to EH&S immediately, because the most valuable resource at FSU is you. Environmental Health and Safety supports FSU's operations in a number of areas. We assist departments in establishing safe practices through education and training, promoting best management practices, and by supporting research activities. Additional information concerning EH&S can be accessed by visiting our website at www.safety.fsu.edu. Ask your supervisor about your department's rally point and evacuation routes, and discuss who is CPR certified in your department. The best time to learn this information is before you need it. If you observe any unsafe conditions, you are encouraged to notify your supervisor or EH&S. You can contact EH&S by phone or via our online reporting tool located on our website, www.safety.fsu.edu. You have the option to make anonymous notifications. Always remember, if you see something, say something. By Florida law, Florida State University is required to provide workmen's compensation insurance to all university employees. In this section, you will learn how to report workplace injuries. Workers' compensation claims are coordinated through the Office of Human Resources. If you are injured on the job, the university's workers' compensation manager will work with you and your supervisor throughout the claim process. If you are injured while doing your job, one of 3 levels of care will apply. The injury will require emergency medical treatment, at which time 911 should be called immediately. The injury will require non-urgent medical treatment, or the injury will require no medical treatment. Regardless of the severity, you must report the injury to your supervisor or department representative as soon as possible. If you are involved with or witness an accident or a near miss that does not result in an injury, you should still notify your supervisor and EH&S. If you sustain a work-related injury or illness that requires emergency medical treatment, dial 911 to call emergency medical services. Allow the 911 operator to terminate the call. Do not hang up the phone before they do. As soon as possible, notify your supervisor or department representative, who will then contact Amerisys. Amerisys will ensure prompt medical treatment and will immediately contact the medical facility to initiate medical case management on your behalf. Once the emergency is under control, Amerisys will contact your supervisor to complete the required paperwork. You or your supervisor must also notify the workman's compensation manager. It is important to understand, if you seek non-urgent medical care on your own, not authorized by Amerisys, you will be responsible for payment of any resulting medical bills and any additional care you receive from that provider. For injuries that require either non-urgent treatment or no medical treatment, immediately report the injury to your supervisor. Your supervisor will contact Amerisys. If medical treatment is required, an Amerisys case manager will coordinate your medical care with a physician. While on the phone with Amerisys, you and your supervisor will complete a first notice of injury. You and your supervisor are also required to complete an accident investigation report together and forward it to the Workmen's Compensation Manager within 48 hours. The treating physician will provide important instructions concerning your injury. Be sure to follow these instructions and stay in contact with your supervisor and the Workmen's Compensation Manager. For additional important information relating to workmen's compensation, visit myfloridacfo.com or copy the URL below. Please note, by reviewing this document, you acknowledge that you have been made aware of your rights as an employee relating to workmen's compensation. Now you have the opportunity to review the information you've just learned. Answer each question to yourself, then compare your answers to the correct responses on the next slide. Check your answers here. In this section, you will learn about the use of university vehicles and what to do if you're involved in an automobile accident. To use a state vehicle, you must possess the type of valid driver's license required for the vehicle being operated. For additional information, check the policy OP-C-9, use of the state vehicle. Uses of FSU's vehicles is only permitted if you are an employee conducting work directly related to the university and your job duties. All other uses, such as going to lunch, running errands, or doing any other non-work related activity, are strictly prohibited. There is an exception for extended trips, where such use is consistent with the completion of your official duties. Students who are also employees of the university may operate university vehicles only while in the course and scope of assigned job duties. Unless approval is given by his or her supervisor, an FSU employee should not accept non-FSU employees as passengers in university vehicles. If you have any questions concerning the legal use of state vehicles, contact your supervisor or EH&S. Laminated insurance cards are inside the glove box of each vehicle. If you are involved in an accident on campus, you must immediately notify the FSU Police Department. If off campus, contact the appropriate area law enforcement agency. A law enforcement officer will prepare a police report and provide you with a driver's license information exchange form. Next, notify your supervisor. Your department should have the vehicle checked to determine if it is safe to drive. Finally, you must notify EH&S to initiate the claims process even if you are in your personal vehicle or rented vehicle. Remember, FSU vehicles are only to be used for official university business. If you are involved in an accident while not in the course and scope of your job duties, you will be responsible for any damages. Note: do not file an accident report online. Never admit fault or promise to pay anything, and do not discuss details of the accident with anyone except the investigating law enforcement officer. Prior to using the vehicle, be sure to check the tires for proper inflation and wear. Test the headlights, horn, windshield wipers, and all mirrors to ensure they are operational. Never ride in an unsafe vehicle. If there are problems, notify your department so repairs can be made. Plan the routes you will take and the length of time to complete the trip to avoid having to rush. Remember to always wear your seatbelt. It's the law and helps keep you safe. Place books, papers, computers, and other loose items in the trunk. Obey all traffic laws. If you become tired, stop and rest. Always look behind the vehicle before you back up. A best practice is to beep your horn once prior to backing up. Use of tobacco products inside FSU vehicles is prohibited. Texting while driving is illegal in Florida, and dialing a cell phone while driving should be avoided. Studies have shown that these types of distractions greatly increase the risk of accidents. Remember to turn on your headlights at times of low visibility. Now you can review the information you've just learned. Answer each question to yourself, then compare your answers to the correct responses on the next slide. Compare your answers here. In this next section, you will learn about the Hazard Communication Standard. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, mandates that every employee has the right to know about hazards in their workplace. The goal of hazard communication and right to know training is to prevent injury and exposure to hazardous materials by educating workers about these hazards in the workplace. Call for help with chemical spills, contamination, exposure concerns, or other issues unsafe to handle alone. If you have questions regarding work hazard, consult your department to see if there are any policies or procedures in place to address safety concerns. If you need additional information regarding work hazards, contact EH&S for guidance. The first and most common place to obtain chemical information is from the factory label attached to the container. Factory labels typically identify chemical content, a hazard warning, and manufacturer's information such as lot number and manufacturer date. Note: if you transfer a chemical into a secondary container, you must label the secondary container with the chemical name and appropriate hazard warnings. Chemicals should never be placed in unlabeled containers, even temporarily. Additionally, manufacturers are required by law to provide safety data sheets, or SDS, formerly called MSDS, which identify the name of the chemical product, hazards associated with its use, appropriate first aid procedures, guidance for safe storage, and accidental release measures. Personnel must be trained to read an SDS and understand its content to realize the hazards presented by various substances. SDS can also be obtained from Environmental Health and Safety through our website at www.safety.fsu.edu under the Safety Data Sheets quick links. Typically, chemicals are used more frequently at work than at home, or in greater concentrations or for longer durations, which may increase the potential of harmful chemical exposure or injury. Therefore, it is important for you to understand the hazards associated with the chemicals used in your workplace and to learn how to avoid injury from chemical exposure. Some materials present acute or chronic health hazards. Acute health hazards are those whose effects occur immediately or soon after you come in contact with them. Chronic health hazards are those whose effects take years or even decades to occur after repeated exposures. Take precautions to safeguard your health. It is important for you to be familiar with chemical labels and the SDS so that you have a better understanding of the proper personal protective equipment to use. This is an example of a GHS compliant label. If you handle chemicals, you are required to follow established protocols and procedures. You will see more examples of pictograms on the next slide. Here are some examples of the various pictograms that could be present on a GHS compliant label. Be aware of the risks associated with your job. Learn what to do in emergencies and the steps to follow in various situations, such as a fire or chemical spill. Conduct your work in a manner that protects yourself and your co-workers, and report any unsafe conditions or accidents to your supervisor. Supervisors should ensure safety equipment is well maintained and appropriate for its intended use. Work areas should be separated from break areas to avoid exposure to hazardous materials. Stay out of areas you're not authorized to enter, and remain alert on the job. To properly dispose of waste, learn what you can discard and how to discard it. Broken glass can be discarded as regular trash if properly packaged. Broken glass or bottles must be placed in a sturdy cardboard box labeled broken glass or sharps with the lid taped shut. In addition to chemicals, other materials that must be disposed of as hazardous waste are paint and paint thinners, non-alkaline batteries, aerosol cans, fluorescent light bulbs, and other mercury-containing products. Used oil and oil filters must also be disposed of properly and are not to be disposed of in regular trash. You are encouraged to familiarize yourself with written procedures for disposal of potentially hazardous materials. When in doubt about hazardous materials, call EH&S for pickup. EH&S will pick up all hazardous waste for disposal, including biohazardous materials, hazardous chemicals, and radioactive materials. Contact EH&S for additional training if you generate hazardous waste. Our final review covers hazard communication and right to know training. Answer each question to yourself, then compare your answers to the correct responses on the next slide. Check your answers here. The final topic you will learn about is FSU's Stormwater Protection Program. FSU's Stormwater Protection Program's goal is to prevent the illicit discharge of chemical, physical, and biological pollutants into a regulated water body, including stormwater conveyance systems and surface waters. An illicit discharge is any contaminant directly or indirectly allowed to enter the university's stormwater drain system that is not composed entirely of stormwater. Possible sources of an illicit discharge include construction waste and litter, chemicals, oils, solvents, and paints. Florida State University actively manages its stormwater system, which is made up of surface drains as well as underground and above-ground drainage conduits. The goal of the Stormwater Protection Program is to minimize anything other than stormwater from entering the drainage system, thereby avoiding groundwater contamination. The drains are designed to prevent low-lying areas from flooding by draining excess rainwater from paved streets, parking lots, sidewalks, and roofs. FSU Facilities monitors construction sites to ensure stormwater systems are not adversely impacted. If you observe blocked, clogged drains or suspicious discharge to stormwater drains, contact FSU Facilities. If you observe an illicit discharge, contact FSU Facilities or report a safety concern at www.safety.fsu.edu. Stormwater pollution is everybody's problem, so do your part and help us keep the campus free of debris and trash. This concludes the Environmental Health and Safety New Employee Orientation. We wish you a successful and safe career at FSU.